Hey everybody, my name is David Foyle. I'm an attorney with Equal Justice Law Group servicing Northern California, and my team and I thought it would be a good idea to put together a list or a series of videos with some common sense tips for winning or losing a lawsuit. And we're going to be presenting stories of things that went well or things that didn't go well with some of our clients and cases, keeping everything confidential, obviously, but basically just putting out information for everybody to try to understand what works well, what doesn't work well. My first video here today is dealing with a case we just finished here in the last week or two. Dealt with a real estate problem. My client owned some property that was located higher in elevation to his neighbor. And when he bought the property a few years ago, he noticed that there was a lot of rainwater running off the roadway across his property and then running in sheets, as he called it, down into the property below him. Caused a little bit of flooding in one portion of his building. So he actually did some damage control by erecting a short 2 or 3 foot tall wall at the base of his property adjoining his neighbor, and put some drains in and had the water run off to a creek in the back that bordered both my client's property and the neighbor's property. Neighbor got upset about that, thought that the water coming through the drain was damaging her property. Contacted him, was very aggressive about the situation, demanded that he undo everything that he did, which actually was helpful because a lot less water was going on her property. By the way, she bought her property after he bought his, and some of this work had already been done, so she didn't really know how bad it was before he began the work to divert the water from the rains. In any event, we tried to schedule some time to meet, see if we could work it out. And she was really hard to deal with, was basically very demanding. She didn't have a lawyer, claimed that she did talk to an attorney, and that she absolutely was positive there was no way that she could lose in a lawsuit, and ended up suing my client. We spent the last 2 years going through discovery, which is the process where information is exchanged by parties in order to prepare for trial. As part of that process, my client, at our request, actually had the property surveyed. And as it turns out, the water that was being drained off of the property was not going onto her property. She actually had fenced in part of the land behind hers that didn't belong to her. And to the extent that water, if any, actually went into that part of the land, she didn't even own it. And so went through trial, and at the end of the trial, of course, our client was successful because we were able to prove that, number one, he didn't do anything wrong, that by nature's effects, the rainwater would have drained onto her property anyway, and that he actually diverted water off of her property, and that if there was any water coming from his drainage system onto the area she claimed to be hers, the property did not belong to her. So the point I'm making with that story, oh, by the way, number one, the real challenge at the end of the case for her is that not only did she lose the lawsuit, but she was ordered to pay our client over $30,000 in expenses to handle the relatively very simple litigation. The trial itself was no longer than 1 day, and all of the work that went into it and leading up to it. So the common sense, the tips, strategic takeaways for we want people to know is, number one, don't assume you're right. You need to investigate before you sue somebody. You need to make sure that the facts are true, that if you're claiming something is true, that you have a basis to back that up. There's some documentation, there's some witness, there's something to verify that what you're saying is actually correct. Be aware that every case has pluses and minuses. There is no perfect case, and although you may have a strong case, there is no such thing as a slam dunk or a perfect case. Number two, do some research about the facts. Even if you believe that you're right, you might want to check out some things. In this case, this plaintiff probably should have gotten some kind of a survey done before she filed lawsuit. It would have been a lot cheaper for her to figure out that the area of land in question wasn't hers before she filed a lawsuit. It's about $2,500, $4,000 or so to get the survey done. Would have been a lot less expensive, and frankly, it would have been a lot better if she would have just tried to work it out with our client anyway. My client is a very reasonable man, really tried to get things resolved, did not want to have a conflict with a neighbor, didn't want a bad neighbor relationship. But ultimately, at the end of the day, this is where it ended up. Could have been resolved very easily if the plaintiff had just been a little more cordial in coming to the table to try to talk about things. Also, talk to a lawyer, but not just a lawyer. Talk to a lawyer that can verify in writing an opinion and what that opinion is based on. You know, I don't know. I've never seen anything documented in this particular case whether a lawyer was involved or not. It's not uncommon for me to run into people that say they've talked to an attorney or they have an attorney when in fact they don't. This woman may have actually talked to a lawyer, had a consultation, but the advice that a lawyer gives, whether it's from us or from anybody else, is only going to be as good as the information they receive. So if she went into a lawyer's office and said, hey, this guy is dumping water on my property, and the lawyer said he can't do that, well, of course that's true. But the fact of the matter is she gave the lawyer, if she talked to one, probably wrong information because it wasn't on her property. And number two, to the extent water may have been draining in that area, it certainly was much more controlled than it was before the fact. So to the extent that she did get an opinion from an attorney and from there assume that she absolutely was foolproof and couldn't lose, she was incorrect. So that's our takeaway for today. I hope that's helpful. Be looking for more videos in the future covering different topics. Basically, we're just going to take real world examples that we run into, give you guys some perspective, and if you need help, like a consultation, you can see our website, equaljusticelawgroup.com, and we'd be more than happy to schedule some time to talk. Take care.